Mesdames et messieurs, l'arrivée de nos invités d'honneur, our guests of honors are arriving.
Rassemblement, garde à vous!
Il y aura dans quelques instants le salut général suivi de l'Eau Canada. Prière de rester debout. In a few seconds we'll have the general salutes followed by Eau Canada. Please remain standing.
Elle peut donc être difficile à imaginer, ces leçons difficiles à saisir. This Remembrance Day brings with it an added dimension, namely the 100th anniversary of the armistice, the peace to end the misery of the trenches, that was also meant to bring about a permanent peace to end all wars. But sacrifice is sacrifice, and the historical moment we are marking today highlights the sacrifice at the heart of every Remembrance Day. Remembering the Great War is in a way a unique challenge, especially for those of us who have never served. There are no veterans left from that monumental conflict. No living witnesses, no one to stand beside us at ceremonies like this one to help us to understand, to be our connection to the past. Remembering the Great War, therefore, calls on us to dig a little deeper, to study and reflect a little more, lest we forget. When I think of the Great War, I think of the years spent in the mud, the cold, under oppressive fatigue, in constant fear of the gas and the snipers. I think of how impossible it must have been to live like that, sometimes for years, while at the same time, as if the task of merely surviving was not enough, while at the same time having a life and death mission to carry out for those back home. Standing here in the cold for just a few minutes provides a shadow of a shadow of a shadow of what they, our soldiers, went through in the Great War. Le froid que nous ressentons aujourd'hui, c'est 1000 fois l'ombre de ce qu'ils ont vécu. I am reminded of the danger, of the discomfort all soldiers must live with, regardless of place and time, and what an unparalleled sacrifice serving your country in a conflict really is. 60,000 Canadians and Newfoundlanders died in World War I, the deadliest military conflict in our country's history. Another 6,000 died in the war's immediate aftermath, from their wounds, from the Spanish flu that was ravaging young and old in Europe and here in Canada, or from related illnesses. There were 550,000 Canadian veterans who survived the Great War. La Première Guerre mondiale a produit 550,000 vétérans, dont les descendants, multipliés par les générations, continuent à rendre hommage à ces vétérans. There were 4,000 or so Indigenous soldiers who served, treated as equals on the battlefield, only to return to Canada to take up another struggle, the struggle for equality. As individuals, we often see the very same event from different perspectives. The same is true of nations. World War I and the armistice have a unique meaning for us as Canadians, beyond the literal fact of war and peace. Many nations, including our neighbors to the south, are born of revolution, of a violent break from others deemed oppressors, or at the very least, deemed obstacles to a people's fulfillment. Canada was also born in battle, but in a different spirit, a spirit that continues to embody our military and foreign policies today. The spirit of peace, of searching for peace, of making peace, of keeping the peace. Not with the objective of controlling strategic interests or pushing the boundaries of empire, but in lament for the human cost of war. After all, it was a World War I Lieutenant Colonel, Dr. John McCrae, who wrote that lament in the poem we read each and every Remembrance Day, a poem that never grows old. That lament has produced the enduring quest for peace that runs through our history, from the Great War through World War II and Pearsonian peacekeeping in the Middle East and elsewhere, to our role in the Balkans and Afghanistan, all the way to General Romeo Dallaire's tireless efforts today to eliminate the use of child soldiers in conflict. We know the date of Confederation, 1867, but we also know that Canada was born and evolved gradually, and that we matured fast and in a significant way in World War I. The Great War was a watershed moment for Canada, where we gained confidence and the respect of other nations. It is the moment when we demanded our due. After all, we had stepped up on the battlefield at Vimy and Hill 70, and at home as well. A third of the shells fired by British armies were made in Canada. And let's not forget the wheat and minerals we supplied to the war effort overseas. Toward the end of the Great War, Canadian infantryman Collingsby Dawson wrote that, I quote, "The war will not last forever, but the memory of it, the suffering of it, the incalculable waste of it will last for all that remains of our lives." And I would add, and of our lives too. Lest we forget, nous nous souviendrons d'eux.
Monsieur le député Scarpaleggia, au nom de tout le personnel de la filiale du Québec du Fonds du souvenir et du Chant d'honneur national, je tiens à souligner votre présence depuis plusieurs années à chacune de nos cérémonies, support envers lequel tous nos membres vous sont immensément reconnaissants, car il nous fait chaud au cœur. Nous sommes aujourd'hui honorés de votre présence en tant que notre invité d'honneur en ce lieu qui nous unit tous, que ce soit en qualité d'anciens militaires, de vétérans, de membres d'une Première Nation ayant servi dans nos forces armées canadiennes, ou de citoyens reconnaissant des efforts et sacrifices de nos vétérans. In this 100th commemoration of the end of the Great War of 1914-1918, we are very grateful that you are able to preside this ceremony in this cemetery, which gathers all of us, whatever our status be, former member of the Canadian Forces, veteran, member of a First Nation with service in the Canadian Forces, or citizen grateful for the efforts and sacrifices of our veterans. Monsieur le député, merci beaucoup. Cette cérémonie marque cette année la 100e commémoration de la fin de la Première Guerre mondiale et il y a lieu, coïncidence, de souligner le travail fait au Chant d'honneur national pour considérablement améliorer la partie du terrain où sont inhumés nos militaires ayant participé à cette Première Guerre mondiale de 1914-1918 et de reconnaître aussi le soutien que nous avons reçu, M. Scarpaleggia, et de votre gouvernement et du ministère des Anciens combattants. Cette 100e commémoration de la fin de la Première Guerre mondiale est l'occasion, une occasion unique, de rappeler au moins l'un des faits d'armes lors desquels plusieurs Canadiens se sont distingués. This 100th commemoration of the end of the First World War gives us the opportunity today to remember at least one of the war actions during which many Canadian soldiers distinguished themselves. Le matin du 8 octobre 1918, dans les derniers 100 jours de la Première Guerre, la 3e armée attaqua pour investir le Canal de L'Escaut au nord de la ville de Cambrai et rejoindre les Britanniques à Escaut-d'Œuvre à l'est de Cambrai. La 2e division traversa le Canal de L'Escaut dans la nuit du 8 au 9 octobre, prenant les Allemands par surprise. Les sapeurs canadiens saisirent les ponts du canal et enlevèrent les charges explosives placées par les Allemands. Un officier des sapeurs, le capitaine Coulson Norman Mitchell, ingénieur, âgé de 28 ans, et 3 de ses hommes examinant les ponts pour prévenir leur démolition. Le capitaine Mitchell a coupé plusieurs fils de détonation sur un pont et, dans la noirceur totale, se précipite de l'autre côté du pont principal qui était lourdement chargé en explosifs. Lui et son équipe repoussent alors un groupe de soldats allemands qui essayaient de reprendre le pont principal d'Air pour le faire sauter. Après avoir repoussé cette attaque, le capitaine Mitchell alla porter assistance à une sentinelle blessée, tua 3 ennemis, en captura 12. Sous le feu ennemi, il continua à couper des fils de détonation et d'enlever les charges explosives. À la suite de cette action, la Croix Victoria fut décernée au capitaine Mitchell pour cette action, l'une des 10 Croix Victoria attribuées à des Canadiens ayant combattu entre le Canal du Nord et Cambrai. Le lieutenant-colonel Mitchell, c'est le même, a servi aussi pendant la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. Aujourd'hui, il est inhumé ici, au Champ d'honneur national. Nous nous souviendrons et de lui et de tous les autres. A century ago, the town of Cambrai, France, became the focal point of major military operations on the Western Front at the time frame of the last 100 days of the First World War. An attack by the Third Army in the area of the Canal de L'Escaut began on the morning of 8 October north of Cambrai in order to control the canal and join the British at Escaut d'Oeuvre. The 2nd Division crossed the Canal de L'Escaut during the night of the 8th to the 9th of October under rain showers, catching the Germans off guard. Canadian engineers seized canal bridges intact and removed German demolition charges before they could explode. Captain Coulson Norman Mitchell, an engineer officer, cut many of the detonation wires on the bridge and in total darkness ran to the other side of the bridge that was heavily loaded with explosives. He and his team pushed back German attackers attempting to recapture the main bridge of Air to blow it up. After having repelled this action, Captain Mitchell gave assistance to an injured sentinel, killed 3 enemies, captured 12 others. Under enemy fire, he continued cutting explosive wires and removing the explosives. For this action, Captain Mitchell was decorated with the Victoria Cross, the highest military decoration of the British Empire. He was one of the 10 Victoria Crosses awarded to Canadians having fought between the Canal du Nord and Cambrai. Captain Mitchell served also during the Second World War, became Lieutenant Colonel, and today he is buried in this National Field of Honor. Let us remember him and all those who suffered and fought for us and for our liberty.